What's up, y'all? I just want to share something with the folks that are labeled disadvantaged, disfavored, and many other things. First, I hope you guys are all doing well and feeling good. So, before George Floyd and more so afterwards, the government acknowledged that they had disfavored certain communities and certain groups of people. You know, this isn't me saying it. There's government documents that are commonplace everywhere. You can Google government and equity, and a bunch of documents will come up that the government put out that are to the effect that, some communities have been disfavored and marginalized. And I think John Oliver does a pretty good job of it in his latest video, Environmental Racism. The one thing that John left out of that video, and I encourage you guys to watch it, is that it's difficult for systemic racism to happen if you don't have people that look like you selling it to you as something else. And so along those lines, I've in my advocacy, I've seen that certain people aren't reached out to. They're left behind, and in particular, I've seen it with black folks, and I've seen it with Chicanos that inherit generational poverty. And I also see, these enclaves of Arab folks that are moving into the apartments that were once considered the crummiest, and because they are not participating in these public processes, they're invisible. So at best, some of these communities that I'm reaching out to are labeled as invisible, and at worst, I would even say some of these communities are despised by society. Society has preconceptions about them and doesn't like them. And some of them could be, the black and brown folks that inherit generational poverty. I'm going to speak specifically to Chicanos right now because I've heard from a lot of them that they feel left out and excluded from Hollywood, from opportunities to improve their lot in life and their kids' lot in life and other things. And I thought about Hollywood, and I noticed that they have had a Mexican Best Director twice, and I believe some of the top movies do have Mexican actors from Mexico in them. And so the ones I think that I hear say they feel left behind are the ones who embraced the Cholo culture, the lowrider culture. It's two separate things. Sometimes there's overlap, but it's two separate things, and the like. And so there's a video I really like by this guy Prayers from San Diego, and I think it's called Young Gods Never Die. And he tells the story in that video of a young kid. It shows him at the ice cream truck, and he doesn't have money to buy ice cream, but his friends do. And then he goes home, and I don't know if it's like the dad or who, but he's arguing with this woman holding a baby that's sobbing and crying, and this kid has to see all that. And when he tries to help and intervene, it goes bad for him, and so that pushes him to the streets. And the chorus is, "I feel your pain." And the video's a little bit haunting because you do see the suffering in people's eyes. It's actually pretty sad. So he did a great job on that. But with the government acknowledgement that certain communities have been left behind, they've also tried to address that by funneling money to these communities. And so in California alone, I believe that over $2 billion has been funneled to communities labeled as disadvantaged. labeled as disadvantaged, and so there's money going to them, and there's criteria for what those communities are. Usually, it's identified by legislative text and definitions. And the two that I can think of are, one is Cow EnviroScreen. You can Google Cow EnviroScreen, enter your zip code, and you'll know if you're a disadvantaged community or not. And the other one is the map of low-income communities, SB 1550 or something like that. But anyways, I've also seen people that like move into these communities, even as they're gentrifying. Let's use Echo Park. I've seen Echo Park in LA Weekly as a place where there's a lot of contention around gentrification. And so the raza there, before it was gentrifying, might have been suffering from diseases because they didn't have the same services that are probably there now that it's gentrified. There might have been gang violence. And so all these things added up to say the people in this neighborhood live 10, 15 years less than the people in the next neighborhood because it's rich. And so, I could move there, let's say, and then start going to, the public utilities, to the local agencies, to the state agencies, and saying, look, I live in this community. I'm disadvantaged. I want to help. Give me some money to help. And they will, and they do. That's where the billions of dollars from the state are going. And I think the Biden administration, as part of its promises, environmental justice was one of them, and they're promising to spend billions of dollars in disadvantaged communities. Now, what happens is that a lot of the raza that feel excluded and left out don't participate in these processes or are being told about what's available to them. They might not need to go through all these hoops. They might have a old bucket that broke down. They don't have the money to fix it, but they might be able to get up to $9,000 and a loan for $5,000 to get a $12,000 EV because used ones qualify. And so they don't know about these things. But when that life expectancy is considered, it's not just pollution they factor in. Sometimes they factor in, these people were killed. There was a lot of gang violence here. And if the data hasn't been updated in a long time, all that gang violence means money, because that made that community disadvantaged. More people were dying there. There wasn't services there. That's money. And so while a lot of people complain, we're being left out, we're doing that, no one cares about us. And that's true. That's true. I'm not denying that. But while they're only complaining, other people are in front of government saying, hey, I'm from this community and my life is less because of it, and I'm disadvantaged, and you did that. And a lot of times they did do that. They didn't follow up on our communities like they do other communities. Here recently, when I was talking about how homeless services and shelters are being almost, South Sacramento is a sacrifice zone. That's where the county plan and city plans are to put, the biggest shelters, more low-income housing. And so while other communities gentrify, they're actually putting obstacles on this one to improve itself. And so while I was talking about that, the local paper ran an article that said in East Sacramento, a school can just call and ask for a substitute and they get it. But if you're in South Sac, and this was the Bee's headline, it said it's chaos. This is the same school district, but schools in wealthy neighborhoods have what they need to keep functioning. Schools in poor ones don't. And so there is a value to your suffering. Other people are cashing in on it. Other people are getting bread off your pain because you're not in those processes saying, no, I disagree with what they want to do. I want to do it this way. And at least adding to the conversation and not letting people get paid off your suffering, off your family's suffering. If you inherited generational poverty and dysfunction, that means maybe your grandpa was boosting the dysfunction in the community, and then your dad was, and then you did. Well, someone's going to get paid off of all that, because that zip code is what they look at. That neighborhood is what they look at, and everyone there is looked at the same, whether they moved there last week or they were part of that community for a long time. And again, these communities don't get the same level of services, and the people that live there get blamed for how it looks. There's a lot of garbage in my community, and true, the neighborhood doesn't always pick it up, but the local government will leave it sitting there for months. Burnt out car, Jeep, windows busted out, surrounded in litter in front of the county building, because just apathy. But when the funds come down, when the grants come out, best believe there's going to be people there claiming you're suffering to be an executive director of a nonprofit, to be asking for $100 an hour salary to do these things. And the truth is, they might have not never suffered like you. They might not even feel your pain, but they're there talking about it, sounding good about it, and moving up. And I would add that, to further highlight how marginalized a lot of Chicanos feel, a lot of them don't know that the UCs are seeing record numbers of enrollment by them, and that a lot of these people are the first time homeowners, not homeowners, first ones in their family to go to college. Sorry, I got my advocacy mixed up. But they're the first ones to go to college, and so that's a good thing. It's not accurate to say we're being left behind, no one cares about us. It's just a certain segment, and I think people are scared of them. I was at an event, and there was important politicians there, and it was pretty fancy, and a lot of the lead non-governmental agencies were there with an award ceremony. And I remember asking them, hey, how come I never see people from Eastside Fresno in these processes that you guys put on? It's always folks from, Kawa, Malaga, the western side. And those are not favored communities. It's rough there. It's they have a lot of pollution there because they're brown. That's where they want to have it, because they're brown. But when I asked that question, the response was, "Oh, it's too wild over there." But you're getting money on their behalf, and you're getting money because of their suffering to help address it, and so that's what that's the takeaway here, that if you don't get involved in politics, you might be led by less intelligent people. You might be led by less scrupulous people. You might be led by people that just don't understand you, that don't know what you go through, people that don't feel your pain. And people who don't feel your pain. So get involved. I'm not asking you to support me. I'm asking you to listen to or read or learn about what's going on in your community. There's a lot of issues, and to get involved and to learn to use your own voice. It could be as simple as just writing a comment letter, or networking with people who can help you write public comment letters, and then sharing them with your community if you agree with them. You should never support the person blindly, because people can change. Power changes people. Money changes people. You should support the causes that you believe in, and the people that are pushing them while they're pushing them. They push them their whole lives, you support them your whole life. But if they change, then you got to make a decision. Am I going to benefit off other people's suffering and poverty, and not have them at the table to share what it was for them, what it's like? So again, I don't. This isn't about me. This is about all of you, taking the time to learn about an issue in your community, to understand it, and to network with people who can help you submit a public comment letter. That's probably the easiest way to do it. And, there's other things you could do. You can learn that if going to the staff, gets you the runaround, just write a letter to the head of the agency. They don't want to deal with that. And someone will have to listen. And if they don't listen, send it to someone above them. Send it to your congressman, to your legislature. Send it to the attorney general. Send it to the president. Write them letters and let them know what's going on in your neighborhood. Let them know if your neighborhood is getting a lot of funding and there's no difference there. And if nothing's getting better. I'll close with this. During COVID, it came out that black and brown folks were most affected by it. Some of it, you could blame them and say, well, they didn't eat as healthy as these other folks in this good community. But some of it could have been the pollution they lived next to all their lives, where, they couldn't escape it. And that gave them asthma. Mexican communities in the Central Valley have some of the highest rates of asthma in the nation. And that asthma predisposed them to getting sicker from COVID and possibly dying. So then the federal government gave out COVID money. And it was intended to help folks in these communities. Here, that COVID money is being used to fund a homeless shelter in a black and brown community. So the money that was intended to help the black and brown folks is actually being used to add more folks to an already overburdened and resourced community, making them more likely to get sicker during the next pandemic. These things run really deep, and please take the time to get involved. Otherwise, someone's going to get paid off you, and you don't even know it. With that said, much love, and please understand, there's no hate in my comments. It's not against people. It's to help people. So with that, take care.